Hello my friends out there. Today we're gonna do a vlog about painting the boat. I've got Mr. Rick over to help me today as he's off work. So just remember, if it is interesting, you like it, you can subscribe, you can give us a thumbs up. But we'll get on and paint this boat so you can see how we're doing it. I'm not saying it's the best way to do it, but it's how I do it and it seems to work for me, so let's get on. Well, we've given it a bath and we're just waiting for it to dry up a bit. So Mr. Rick over there having a quick smoke while it's drying up, but can't do much until it's dry, and we'll see if we can tape it up. Just mixing paint up. We've actually gone with about 2% thinner because it is quite thin, so we're not going to thin it down anymore. Rick's giving it a good stir. So we get on and see if we can get some of it on the boat. Just remember, if you're painting the boat, just a little bit of paint at a time. Don't try and work the paint too much. About 2 foot wide, that's all you need. Once you've got a bit on, you just go from the top down. Just remember, don't push too hard on the roller, just lightly across it. Same, about 2 foot. Just go across. That paint's on there worked enough now. On a little bit of paint.
How much are you putting on the roller there, Steve?
A little tiny bit. The roller's virtually dry. A little tiny bit. And again, just from the top down to the bottom. Very lightly. Don't put no pressure on it.
It's good because of the light. We can see the bit you have done and the bit you're yet to do.
I'm glad you can, because I'm having trouble seeing it. Can you hold that rubbing straight up a bit?
Just technical term there, Steve.
That was a bit, wasn't it? Okay, the same. Just down, very gently, lightly, so as we don't get the orange peel effect. But remembering, don't try and do big bits, just like 2 foot, 60 centimetres, something like that at a time. Remember, when you're doing it, you're not trying to paint the boat all at once. You want at least a couple of thin coats on it, and if you have to, just take your time and do 3 coats on it, but 2 should be enough. It's a bit easier not having the rubbing streak in the way. We did actually try to get the rubbing streak off. It seems it's so rotten. The screws in it, all the heads have gone, and it was just so difficult to get off. That's the only reason it's still there. And we can clean it up where it is, so we're just going to leave it, fix it back properly once the paint's on. if you're not completely sure how hard to push, just think of your wife. Don't push too hard. Keep it nice and gentle. That's what they appreciate. I think the most important is, don't try and put too much paint on. Don't try and do too big an area, and don't work it too much. Try and get as much of that paint out the roller as you can, really. All the paint was on that rubbing strake is from the person who painted it before at some point. I'm going to have to try and get that off. When we're done, we'll try and give it a good clean. So if anyone's got any suggestions how to get paint off of a rubbing strake, it'd be greatly appreciated. If you are doing this, the best thing to use is a gloss roller. What you'd use for gloss paint, not an emulsion brush.
What did you do to the roller before you started to use it, Steve?
I done a bit of tape around it just to get any loose bits of lint off. I'll show you that in a minute when we're round there, what I've done. Once this is actually completely cured, before we do a top coat, we'll probably sand this down again with something like a 400 grit before we even attempt anything to do with the top coat. But we'll see how this comes out first before we go any further. Oh, nearly done one off.
Starboard side it's called, Steve.
Getting too technical. It's called the painted side. This is the painted side, that's the non-painted side.
Look like a Picasso at work.
Funny how he's money, yeah? Mind you, he had no money when he was alive either, did he?
So just say a bit about how you're loading that roller.
Just a little tiny bit of paint at a time.
Yeah, but you're loading the roller from the well in the tray, and then you use the ramp to scrape that paint back off.
Yeah, because you just want a little tiny bit of paint. So if I just take the paint what's there, it's going to be too much paint on the roller. So I want the bare minimum of paint.
So is that the starboard side done?
Yeah, that's one side done.
I'm just going to have a sweep down the boat at what you've done so far. It's quite a nice finish.
These rollers are not expensive, but by the time I've done half the side of the boat, you get bits of paint start drying up on the end. So before I start the boat, but the other side, I will just chuck this away and put a new roller on.
Now this is only the undercoat. Got a couple of top coats going on under this, and then we've got anti-fouling from that line downwards and under the boat. So far I've got a nice clean line. Any mistakes at this stage isn't an issue really, because we've got, as I said, the anti-fouling and 2 top coats on top of this. But this is a good indicator line for how the other coats will eventually meet up and join at this line. Steve did say this frog tape is really expensive, And can I coil it up again so that we can use it later? It's really a tight ass. Yes, I'm peeling it off in a downward. You don't want to pull it off in an upward motion like that, because you could take some paint off. So make sure you are below the horizontal when you peel it off. The paint on this side is a bit younger than the paint on the other side, because there's an hour's difference, and we finished about half an hour ago. So it took about an hour to do the second coat. So this paint is fresher than the other side. And I think we're getting a better result on this side than we did the other side. So taking it off 15 minutes after you've painted it is the way to go. I'm getting good at this. I might get a job as a chief tape taker offer. There we go. That transom is handsome, like me.
Right, I've given this top a sand. I'm getting ready to put the first coat of the anti-fouling on. Now you can see there I've put the frog tape on to get a nice crisp line. But above the top of it here I've gone with some masking tape, just so it gives you a bit more leeway that you don't go onto the boat. But that is the only thing it's for. I suppose you could be a bit more careful, but for the price of masking tape it's worth just masking it up rather than trying to get this blue off the boat again afterwards. Well, first coat of anti-fouling is on. She looks a lot better. So off we go. Maybe a second coat tomorrow. Can't really see with the shade, so maybe I'll show you tomorrow when the sun's not on it and there's not quite so much shade. Some of you might think, how much sandpaper do I need? Well, I'm using a little 125mm orbital sander, and I've used 3 discs. I probably could have used 2, but I've actually used 3. Just thought I'd mention it, so it gives you some idea of how much paper you need. Just another little tip, your roller, before you get it, if you just wrap a load of masking tape around it, just go round, that's pretty much it. Just go round, and as you take the masking tape off, any little bits of lint or anything what was left on the roller, just stick to it, so it shouldn't leave you any loose little bits. It's just a little tip, might be useful to someone. Don't forget, you can like, you can subscribe, whatever you want to do. Thumbs up, thumbs down, but it's always nice to see that someone's taking some interest in it. And I'll say goodbye for now and see you next time.